The headline of this story is I told my fiancée that I was cut out of the family business, but it was all a plan to show her gold digger mask. A little favor before we get started. Please subscribe if you like this kind of stuff. It's free, helps the channel, and makes sure you never miss a great video. Let's get going. Hello, Reddit. I never imagined I'd be the one to post here, but with all that's happened, I feel like this tale needs to be told. It's about knowing that not everyone you accept into your life should stay. First, let me add that I've always been the kind of guy that looks out for the people I care about. My father taught me that. He started a real estate development company from scratch and made it huge. But he also made sure that my brother Luke and I worked for what we got. In the summer, I worked on project sites, and at night, I learned the business. It wasn't given to us for free. I didn't mind spending the money I made on the lady I loved when I started making a lot of it. Monica, my ex-fiancée, comes into the picture. From the first time I saw her, she had this aura about her. She is confident and fashionable, and she turns heads without even trying. We clicked immediately away, and I felt I had found the one. I'm not going to lie. I liked making her happy. I'd make it happen if she said she wanted something. A purse from a designer. Done. Sure, short trips on the weekend. Dinner at the best spots in town. I didn't even blink. It wasn't about showing off or making her happy so she'd stay. I just thought she deserved the finest. I assumed that giving was what love was back then. And to her credit, Monica did a great job of being the perfect fiancée. She would brighten up when I surprised her with something, call me her provider, and tell her friends how blessed she was. And yes, I liked it. But everything changed when my dad died a few months ago. It wasn't just a personal loss to lose him. It was like losing the base of all I'd built my life on. He wasn't just my dad. He was my teacher and the person who taught me how to get around in the world. I was sad and trying to figure out what life would be like without him. And at the same time, I had to work with Luke to run the firm. It was a lot. Monica, on the other hand, didn't appear to notice or care how hard I was having it. At first, I assumed she was just trying to give me some room. She wasn't the kind of person who cared for others, but I thought everyone deals with loss in their own way. It wasn't just that she didn't help. It was the change in her emphasis. She started asking serious questions about the corporation less than 2 weeks after the funeral. No, these were sharp, specific, business-related queries. When do you formally take charge? Who is on the board now? Are you in charge of everything? Is Luke going to try to get a bigger share of the business? At first, I answered since I didn't think it was a big deal. But the more she asked, the more wrong it felt. She didn't ask me how I was doing or if I needed anything. She only talked about my dad when it had to do with the business. It looked like all she cared about was what was next. And not for us, but for her. The questions weren't just strange. They didn't give up. I'd come home tired from dealing with work and grief all day, and she'd jump on me. How much equity do you own now? Do you have the last word on contracts? Or does Luke? What about growth? Are you in charge of that now? It seemed as if she had been waiting for this moment. She wasn't going to waste any time now that it was here. I also started to notice other things. She talked about the business like it was her golden ticket. The way she would casually bring up projects to our acquaintances, giving them indications about how we were expanding the business. And don't even get me started on how she started bringing up Luke's name in talks. She would reply, "Luke is so good at business. You two must work really well together." At first, I thought it was just her pride, that she wanted to show off how well I was doing. But the more I paid attention, the more it seemed planned. She started pushing to go to meetings she didn't need to go to, saying she wanted to learn more about the business. She even said she would throw a meal for the board members to assist her get to know them better. It was also clear. The fact is, Monica has always liked the privileges of my way of life. But this was not the same. It wasn't about the good things that came from being with me. It was about putting herself in the right place. She didn't act like a fiancé. She was acting like someone who wanted to get a job with the organization. At first, I didn't say anything because I wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt. This might have been her way of dealing with things. She might have assumed that becoming involved would help, but I knew better deep down. One night, when we were sitting on the couch, she said something that shocked me. What would you do if something happened and you weren't in charge of the company? The question hit me like a brick. Not because it was rude. It didn't seem like it at first, but it showed how she felt about me. Not as Max, the boy she said she loved, but as Max, the guy who worked for a corporation worth millions of dollars. I couldn't let it go. It wasn't just what they said. The way she stated it made it sound like she was testing the waters. It stuck with me and kept bothering me. Was I just being paranoid? Or was anything else going on? I started to think about every time we had talked since Dad died. Things that I had ignored previously suddenly seemed different. She didn't act like someone who loved me and wanted to support me through a hard period. Instead, it felt like she was judging me and figuring out what to do next. It didn't help that she was virtually obsessed with the business. She had always known what I did for a career, but she had never cared about the details previously. It was all she wanted to talk about now. No matter what we were talking about, it always came back to work. My job, Luke's job, the board, and the projects. One night, we were in the living room and she was looking at her phone. She added, "You know, I was reading this article on succession planning. It said, family companies may get pretty complicated if duties aren't clearly defined. Do you and Luke ever argue over who is in charge?" I glanced at her, trying to read her expression, but she didn't even look up from her phone. "Not really," I said, keeping my tone casual. "We both know our strengths and we work together. It's not a competition." She nodded like that answer satisfied her, but I could see the gears turning. It wasn't the first time she'd brought up Luke. Lately, it seemed like she was more interested in his role in the company than in anything I was doing. At first, I thought she was just being polite. Luke and I had always been close, so it made sense that she'd want to get along with him. But now, it felt like something else entirely. The turning point came a few days later. I was in my home office trying to catch up on some paperwork when Monica came in holding 2 cups of coffee. She handed me one with a smile and perched herself on the edge of the desk. "You've been working so hard lately," she said. Her tone sweet but oddly deliberate. "Do you ever feel like you're carrying all the weight on your shoulders?" I shrugged. "It comes with the territory." She came in a little closer. "But doesn't it concern you that Luke gets to share the load without dealing with the same pressure? You are the face of the corporation today. I mean, he's simply helping, right?" That struck a nerve. Not because she was correct. Luke and I had always been equal in the business, but it felt like she was attempting to make me doubt myself. I said a little sharper than I meant to that Luke isn't just helping. We work together. Always have been. She stepped back and seemed astonished, but she didn't let go. "That's all I want to say. You deserve more credit. You are in charge now." I didn't say anything, but the whole thing made me feel horrible. Monica didn't usually talk about Luke like that. She had always been nice and respectful to him, if anything. But suddenly it seemed like she was attempting to break us up. Or maybe she was just seeing how much power I truly had. After that, I couldn't stop observing the little things she did. She'd stand next to the powerful people at gatherings, laugh at their jokes, and join in on their talks as if she belonged there. She'd question me about negotiations and contracts at home without thinking about it. And every time Luke came up, she'd find a way to bring the topic back to his job at the corporation. The worst part was that I couldn't tell anyone about it. Luke would have called her out right away, but I wasn't ready for that yet. My friends didn't know her well enough to notice the difference, and I didn't want to bother my mom while she was still sad. So I kept it to myself, mulling the pieces over in my thoughts and attempting to figure it all out. Was I hallucinating things? Or was Monica actually revealing me who she was? One night, I decided to put her to the test. Nothing big, just a casual comment to see how she'd react. We were having dinner, and I mentioned that a new project was running over budget. "It's going to be a headache," I said, spearing a piece of steak with my fork. "The board's not happy, and Luke's been up to his ears in it." Her eyes lit up and she leaned forward. "Oh, what's the project?" "It's just a residential development," I said, keeping my tone light. But it's tied to a lot of other deals, so the pressure's on. She nodded, clearly trying to act nonchalant. Sounds stressful. Are you the one who has to handle all that? Not really, I said. Luke's taking the lead on this one. He's better at the big picture stuff. Her face didn't change, but I could see the disappointment in her eyes. She didn't press the issue, but the fact that she'd latched onto the project so quickly confirmed what I'd already suspected. She wasn't interested in me. She was interested in what I could give her. That night, I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling and trying to figure out my next move. I didn't have concrete proof yet, but my gut was screaming that something wasn't right. The hardest part was reconciling the Monica I'd fallen for with the person she was becoming. When we first met, she'd been so warm, so genuine, or at least I'd thought she was. Now, it felt like everything she did was calculated. Like she was playing a game I didn't even know I'd entered. But I wasn't about to let her win. If Monica thought she could manipulate me into giving her what she wanted, she was in for a rude awakening. I'd spent my whole life watching my dad navigate tough situations. And if there was one thing he taught me, it was how to spot a snake in the grass. I decided then and there that I wasn't going to sit back and let her control the narrative. If she was playing a game, I was going to play it better. By the time I decided to test Monica, I wasn't questioning if her intentions were bad. I was questioning how far she'd go. Every little thing she did seemed like another piece of the puzzle falling into place. And I knew I needed to act before it was too late. The more I thought about it, the clearer it became. Monica wasn't in this relationship for me. She was here for the lifestyle, the money, the access. And now with my dad gone, she saw an opportunity to cement her position in the family business. Or at least that's what it looked like. But I wasn't about to sit back and let her play me. If she was here for the wrong reasons, I needed to know for sure. And the best way to do that was to create a scenario where her true colors would shine through. I spent a few days planning how I'd do it. It had to be believable, but also hit her where it mattered most, her vision of our future together. If she thought my role in the business wasn't as secure as she'd assumed, I wanted to see how she'd react. Would she stick around or would she start looking for the next opportunity? One evening after dinner, I decided to drop the first hint. We were sitting on the couch and I casually said, "I've been thinking a lot about how things are going to change now that Dad's gone. There has been a lot of chatter about restructuring." Monica looked up from her phone, evidently interested. "Restructuring? What kind of changes are you making?" I shrugged and said, "Oh, just a few shifts here and there. Not much. It's mostly about making sure everything's running smoothly." She nodded, but I could tell she was waiting for me to say more. Over the next few days, I started dropping more breadcrumbs, little comments about the board, how decisions were being made, and how my role might not be as secure as she thought. I wasn't outright lying, but I was definitely painting a picture that would make her question my future in the company. Finally, one night, I decided to lay it all out. "Monica," I said, sitting her down in the living room, "there's something I need to tell you." She tilted her head, looking concerned. "What is it?" I sighed, trying to look conflicted. "So, I've been going over Dad's will with the family lawyer, and there's something I found out that I wasn't expecting. It turns out I'm not his biological son." Her eyes widened. "What? That doesn't make any sense." "I know," I said, shaking my head. "Apparently, Dad adopted me when I was a baby, but I guess he never wanted it to be a big deal. The thing is, because of that, the majority of the inheritance is going to Luke. He's taking over as CEO and I'm only getting a small portion." Monica sat there for a moment processing what I just said. I could practically see the wheels turning in her head. "Wait," she said slowly. "So, you're not going to be in charge?" I shook my head. I'll still have a role in the company, but it's more like a consultant. Luke's the one running the show now." Her face tightened, but she quickly masked it with a weak smile. "Well, as long as you're okay with it, right? That's what matters." "Yeah," I said, leaning back. "It's not ideal, but it is what it is. At least I don't have to deal with all the stress of running the company." She nodded, but I could tell she wasn't buying it. Her mind was already racing, trying to figure out what this meant for her. After planting the idea that my role in the company wasn't as secure as Monica thought, I sat back and watched. I didn't have to wait long to see the cracks start forming. It was subtle at first, but the shift in her behavior was impossible to miss once you knew what to look for. She started talking about Luke a lot more. Not just in passing, but in a way that felt calculated. Luke's really stepping up. Hey? She'd remark things like it's impressive how he's handling everything, or it's almost like she's fishing for something. He has a really strong presence. It made me sick to hear her talk about my brother like that. It wasn't just the words. It was how she said them. It seemed like she was seeing how far she could go before I noticed. But I didn't say anything to her. Not yet. I wanted to see how far she would go. One day, she talked about Luke in a way that really made me mad. She was seated at the kitchen table and looking at her phone like she always does. "Do you think Luke ever feels overwhelmed?" she asked out of the blue. "I mean, with all the responsibility he has now." I shrugged and kept my voice casual. "Most likely. It's a lot of work." She nodded, and her face looked deep in meditation. I should check in with him to see how he's doing. During times of change like these, it's crucial to help each other out. I wanted to chuckle at how bold that was. Monica had never cared much about Luke before, but now she was worried about how he was doing. I knew what she was doing, but I went along with it. I said, "That's nice of you," and kept my voice calm. I'm sure he would like it. The next few days proved what I had been thinking. She began messaging Luke more often, always pretending to be there for him. At first, it was just innocent things, like articles about leadership and little notes about how much she liked his work. But then it grew braver. Luke sent me a message from her one night. It said, "I admire how decisive you are. You're so good at taking charge. Max is great, but you have this natural confidence that's really inspiring." Reading it made my blood boil, but I held back my anger. I wanted to see how far she was willing to take things. Over the next week, the messages became more personal. She'd ask Luke how his day was going, share stories about her stressful schedule, and even start dropping compliments about his appearance. "You always look so sharp in meetings," one of her texts read. "It's really impressive." Then came the photos. They weren't inappropriate, at least not overtly, but they were clearly meant to get his attention. One was of her at a high-end coffee shop captioned, "This place made me think of you. Let's get coffee here sometime." Another picture showed her in a stylish attire and said, "I was thinking about wearing this to the next event. What do you think?" It was painfully clear. Luke and I had always been close, and he didn't hold back when he showed me everything. "She's not even trying to be subtle," he remarked, shaking his head. "You sure you don't want me to say something?" "Not yet," I told him. "I want to see how far she'll go." The last straw was when Monica showed up at Luke's office without warning. He texted me right away to say that she had said she was in the area and wanted to check on him. She brought him coffee and sat in his office for almost an hour, talking about the company and how impressed she was with his leadership. "She's laying it on thick," Luke said when he called me afterward. "At this point, it's like she's auditioning for a role." That night, Monica came home acting like nothing had happened. She kissed me on the cheek, asked about my day, and curled up on the couch like everything was normal. But I couldn't even look at her the same way. She wasn't the woman I thought I was going to marry. She wasn't the person I'd fallen in love with. And now that I'd seen her true colors, I couldn't unsee them. The most shocking part was how easy it had been for her to switch gears. The moment she thought my position in the company was shaky, she started angling for Luke. It wasn't about love or loyalty. It was about what she could get out of it. I spent the rest of the week documenting everything. Luke and I kept a record of her texts, photos, and visits. I wanted to make sure that when the time came, there'd be no room for her to deny what she'd done. She thought she was being clever, but she didn't realize that we were one step ahead. By the end of the week, I had more than enough proof to confront her, but I wasn't ready to pull the trigger just yet. I wanted to see if she'd dig herself in even deeper. The way she acted around me was almost comical. She still played the role of the supportive fiancé, asking me how work was going and pretending to care about my stress. But her questions always had an edge to them, like she was fishing for something. What did the board say about the new project? Did Luke present it? She asked one night. They approved it, I responded simply. That's great, she added, her tone a touch too happy. He's really good at that kind of thing. It took everything in me not to roll my eyes. Yeah, he did a great job. Her smile faltered for a second and I could see the disappointment behind her eyes. She was trying so hard to act like she cared about me, but her true motives were written all over her face. By now, I wasn't just angry. I was disgusted. The woman I thought I knew was gone, replaced by someone who would do whatever it took to climb the ladder. She wasn't my partner. She was a parasite. But I wasn't about to let her win. The pieces were all in place and the trap was set. Now it was just a matter of time before she realized she'd been caught. By the time Monica agreed to meet Luke at his apartment, I knew she had taken the bait. Every step she'd taken over the past few weeks had been more desperate, more blatant. Now she thought she was closing in on her next move, but she had no idea we were way ahead of her. The plan was simple. Luke invited her over under the pretense of discussing the company. He told her he wanted to go over some ideas about the business, especially since he was the one running things. Now, of course, Monica jumped at the opportunity. She made sure to ask if I'd be there. And when Luke casually said I'd be busy, her response was a little too eager. Oh, perfect. That works out. The day of the meeting, I was already set up at Luke's apartment before she arrived. Luke lived in a sleek high-rise with a great view of the city. Exactly the kind of place Monica would have pictured herself living if she played her cards right. I was tucked away in one of the spare bedrooms, phone in hand, ready to record everything. We didn't need a lot of elaborate prep. Monica was so caught up in her own schemes that she didn't bother being cautious. When the doorbell rang, I stayed completely still as I heard Luke let her in. Wow, Monica said, her voice bright and sugary. Your place is amazing. Luke laughed and said, well, I had some work done on it recently. Got to keep things sharp. Her heels clicked on the hardwood floor as she walked further inside. I brought this for you, she said, and I could hear her setting something down on the counter. Luke later told me it was a ridiculously expensive painting. Who brings a painting to a casual business talk? Monica. That's who. From my spot in the spare bedroom, I had a perfect view through a small gap in the door. Monica had dressed to impress. Tight red dress, perfectly styled hair, and makeup done like she was heading to some high-end gala instead of a simple meeting. She had that smile on her face, the one she used when she wanted something, and it was nauseating to see it directed at Luke. The conversation started out harmless enough. She asked how he was handling the new responsibility and complimented his leadership skills. She leaned forward slightly as they talked, her body language almost screaming. Look at me. I'm here for you. Luke, to his credit, played it cool. He didn't give her much, just enough to keep her talking. You're really good at this, she said after a few minutes. It's no wonder your dad trusted you with everything. You've got such a clear vision for the company. Thanks, Luke replied casually, like he wasn't even fazed. She laughed lightly. I mean it. Not everyone has that kind of presence. Max is great, of course, but you have this natural confidence that's just so impressive. Hearing her say that made my stomach churn. She didn't even hesitate to throw me under the bus. She kept finding ways to steer the conversation toward herself. You know, she said, tilting her head. I've always been interested in the business side of things. I think it's fascinating how much potential there is for growth. I'd love to help in any way I can. Luke nodded, playing along. What kind of role do you see yourself in? Monica smiled, her tone becoming more flirtatious. Oh, I don't know. Something supportive. I'm good at organizing and motivating people. I think I could bring a lot to the table. She reached out and lightly touched his arm, laughing at something, he said. It was so calculated, so blatant, and I felt a surge of anger as I recorded the whole thing. She didn't even look like she was trying to hide her intentions. After about 20 minutes of small talk and thinly veiled compliments, Monica made her move. "You know," she said, her voice dropping slightly, "I've been thinking a lot about the future. You and I could make an amazing team. With your leadership and my support, there's no limit to what we could accomplish." She slid a little closer to him on the couch, her knee nearly brushing his. "Imagine it. The two of us working side by side. The company would thrive." Luke leaned back slightly, keeping a polite distance. "What about Max?" He responded in a bland tone. "What?" I held my phone harder. "Max is sweet, but let's be serious. He doesn't have the same drive as you. He feels at home where he is. But you're not like that. You have big plans. You have a vision." My fists clenched as I recorded her words. She had no idea she was digging her own grave. Then came the final move. She placed her hand on Luke's shoulder, leaning in just slightly. "I think we could do great things together. Luke. Don't you?" Luke glanced at his watch, keeping his cool. "You know, I just remembered. I have to head out soon." Something urgent came up. Monica blinked, clearly caught off guard. "Oh well, I guess we can pick this up another time." Luke nodded, already standing up and moving toward the door. "Yeah, for sure. Thanks for stopping by." I stayed hidden until I heard the front door close behind her. When I finally came out of the room, Luke looked at me and shook his head. "She's unbelievable," he said. "You got all that?" "Every word," I replied, holding up my phone. I couldn't even feel angry anymore. Just a cold, quiet satisfaction. She thought she was playing us, but now we had everything we needed to expose her for who she really was. The day of the unmasking arrived, and I won't lie. I'd been looking forward to it. Not in a vindictive way. Okay, maybe a little, but because I wanted to finally close the chapter on Monica's lies and deceit. I'd spent weeks gathering evidence, watching her maneuver, and pretending everything was fine. Now, it was time to put all the cards on the table. The setting couldn't have been more perfect. A family dinner to celebrate my dad's legacy. It was the kind of event where everyone close to the family showed up. Extended relatives, business associates, and even a few board members from the company. Monica had, of course, insisted on being there. "It's important to show your family that we're united," she'd said, her tone oozing with self-importance. She came dressed to impress in a luxury outfit that I had purchased her months ago. She appeared like a supportive fiancée, calm, collected, and ready to dazzle anyone who came her way. But I knew what was true. There was someone behind that gorgeous face who was going to have her whole veneer torn away. We had thought through everything extremely well. We didn't want to make a scene or turn the dinner into a big show, but we wanted everyone who mattered to see Monica for who she really was. The proof was ready. Screenshots of her texts, recordings of her calls, and even the video from Luke's apartment. There was no way she could talk her way out of this. The night started off like any other. People talked to each other and remembered my dad. Monica did a great job. She laughed at the correct times and nodded along to stories she didn't even know. I stayed away from her so she could enjoy her last minutes of pretending to fit in. The real performance started when dinner was served. Luke went up to make a toast. His voice was calm and steady as he talked about our dad's legacy and the virtues he taught us. Monica looked great, and she was probably thinking that she was going to ride the coattails of that legacy into her ideal life. But suddenly Luke's voice changed. He looked around the room and continued, "There's something else I want to talk about tonight. It's not easy to talk about, but I think everyone here needs to know the truth." Everyone in the room looked at him and then fell silent. Monica tilted her head and frowned a little. She had no idea what was coming. "Not yet. You all know that my brother Max has gone through a lot lately, taking on new obligations after losing Dad. Things haven't been easy for him, but he's had the support of someone who was meant to be there for him no matter what." Monica smiled, possibly because she thought Luke was saying kind things about her. She even put her hand on my arm, as if she wanted to enjoy the attention. Luke's face hardened as he said, "But sometimes individuals aren't who they seem to be. Max has learnt this the hard way, which is too bad." That's when I stood up. "Monica, I replied, turning to face her. I think it's time we had a genuine chat about your intentions. Her smile froze and her hand slipped from my arm. What are you talking about? She asked, her voice shaky. I pulled my phone out of my pocket and held it up. This, I said, tapping the screen to play the recording from Luke's apartment. The room filled with her voice as she praised Luke's leadership, criticized me, and suggested that the two of them would make a great team. Her face went pale as the recording continued, the weight of her words hanging in the air. By the time the audio reached the part where she called me Mwit, but comfortable, and leaned into Luke for her final pitch, she looked like she wanted to disappear. When the recording ended, the room was dead silent. All eyes were on Monica, who was now stammering and looking around frantically. That's not what it sounds like, she said, her voice high-pitched and defensive. You don't understand. This is a misunderstanding. Is it? I said, my tone cold. Because I have screenshots of your texts, too. You were planning this from the moment you thought I wasn't the one in charge. She turned to Luke, her expression desperate. Luke, tell them. You know this isn't what it looks like. I was trying to help. Luke didn't even flinch. Help? By trying to undermine Max and position yourself as my partner? That's what you call help? Her parents, who had been sitting across the table, looked horrified. Her mother's face was red with embarrassment while her father leaned forward, his expression a mix of anger and disbelief. Monica, her father said, his voice low and stern. What is he talking about? Is this true, Dad? No, it's not true, she said, tears welling in her eyes. They're twisting everything. They're trying to make me look bad. I stepped closer, my voice calm but firm. No one's twisting anything. These are your words, Monica. Your actions. You made your choice when you decided to betray me. And now you're facing the consequences. She broke down then, crying and pleading. Please, Max, you don't understand. I was scared about our future. I didn't know what was going to happen, and I panicked. I shook my head, my voice steady. You didn't panic. You calculated. You saw an opportunity and you went for it. But you underestimated me and my family. Her parents looked like they wanted to crawl under the table. Her father stood up abruptly, muttering apologies to me and Luke before turning to his daughter. We'll talk about this later, he said sharply. Get your things. We're leaving, Monica said one last time, her face covered with tears. Max, please. I love you. We can make this better. But I didn't give up. No, Monica. We can't do it. You've shown me who you really are, and I can't forget that. This is done. The tension in the room finally broke when her father pulled her out. The other attendees seemed uncomfortable and didn't know what to say or do. Luke smacked me on the shoulder, which said you did the right thing. After dinner, a few people came up to me and said they were there for me. Some people were stunned, while others weren't. But everyone agreed on one thing. Monica didn't belong in my life or in our family. I had a peculiar sense of relief that night as I laid in bed. I could finally focus on what was important, reconstructing my life without her in it. The weight of her lies and manipulation was gone. The next day, she started texting me. At first, they were just the typical desperate attempts to say sorry. Max, I'm so sorry. Please let me explain. Then came the excuses. You got everything wrong. I just wanted what was best for us. She got worse when I didn't answer. I can't believe you would do that to me. I disabled her number after all that happened, but she found other ways to get in touch. I got emails, messages from friends we both know, and even handwritten letters dropped at my door. Each one was more crazy than the last. She went back and forth between begging me to forgive her and blaming me for wrecking her life. It was tiring, but I wouldn't become involved. I wasn't going to waste any more time on her because she didn't deserve a response. A week later, she told the news. I was at my desk going over some papers when an email from Monica came in. The subject line said, "You need to know this." I opened it anyhow. There was only one line inside. I'm pregnant, Maximum. It's your baby. I stared at the computer, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. I didn't feel shocked or scared at first. I couldn't believe it. This was Monica, the same lady who had lied to me, used me, and betrayed me at every opportunity. There was no way she was being honest. This wasn't about a baby, though. This was her last chance to get everything back under control. I still couldn't entirely ignore it. I sent Luke the email with a short note. Look at this nonsense. A few minutes later, my phone rang. It was Luke on the phone. Did you answer? He said. No, I answered. And I won't. She's lying. Okay. He added, she's probably hoping you'll freak out and run back to her. Don't give her the satisfaction. I wasn't going to. I knew Monica well enough to see through her game. She'd lied about everything else. Why should this be any different? But Monica wasn't going to give up that easily. She started getting in touch with my family over the next few days. She contacted my mom and said she was pregnant and scared about what to do. She even called Luke and said she needed to chat to him about what would happen to our family in the future. Luke told her to stop right away. He told her straight out to seek a paternity test if it was Max's. Stop wasting my time if not. When that didn't work, she asked her parents for help. I don't know what she told them, but it didn't work. At that point, her parents were already mad at her over the dinner fiasco. It seems that her dad had been getting calls from people in their social circle asking what had happened and why their daughter was being talked about in such bad ways. It was the worst thing that could happen to a family who cared so much about their image. Her parents kicked her out after a very heated disagreement. That same night, she came to my flat and banged on the door, asking for me to let her in. She cried so loudly that my neighbors could hear her when I didn't answer. Please, Max, she cried. I don't have any other place to go. I need you. We can repair this for the baby's sake. In the end, one of my neighbors came out and told her to go. She yelled at them and called them names, but in the end, she left, saying that I would regret this. That was the last time I met her in person, but she kept trying to get in touch with me. She started sending me emails saying she was pregnant and needed my help. I didn't pay attention to any of them. A few weeks later, a friend of both Monica and mine told me that she had been sleeping on friends' couches to save enough money to get by. Her parents had entirely cut her off, and knowledge of her bad behavior had spread so far that most people didn't want to be around her. She had gone from having a wealthy, glamorous life to fighting to stay alive. About a month after the dinner, she sent me her last email. It was long, all over the place, and full of things that didn't make sense. She told me she was sorry, that she loved me, that she hated me, that she was pregnant, that she wasn't pregnant but might be, that she couldn't live without me, and that she prayed I burnt in hell. I erased it without responding because it was the craziest thing I'd ever read. My life is tranquil again now, months later. I've moved on and am now concentrating on the things that are most important to me. My family, my business, and my own pleasure. The company is doing well under our guidance, and Luke and I are closer than ever. People inquire about Monica from time to time, and I just shrug and say, she's in the past. That's where she belongs, in the past. Her greed, deceit, and manipulation all contributed to her downfall. She thought she could trick me, but in the end, she just tricked herself. I know who I am and what I deserve. And it definitely isn't someone like